Next, I want to talk about Freud's theory of psychosexual development. Now let's look at Freud's view on personal growth. Freud believes that the first 5 years of life are critical in an individual's personality development. And at different stages, the bodily energy, libido, concentrates on different parts of the body. The mental and emotional growth of the child are dependent on the social interactions, anxieties, and gratification that occur in relation to these zones. If normal development is blocked, fixation on a particular stage occurs, and that will have really bad consequences on the child's personality development in later adulthood. Okay, Freud assumed that all people go through a set series of psychosexual stages in personality development, and each stage involves a conflict within one's intrapsychic forces. And successful resolution of the conflict leads to development of healthy adulthood, whereas unsuccessful resolution of the conflict gives rise to various personality problems of unhealthy adulthood. And this is how Freud proposed that people go through the sequence of psychosexual development. And other stages would pass through the same order, and each stage would have its agonist zone and tasks. And each stage would leave some permanent effect in one's later life and affect personality development accordingly. Okay, let's look at each of the stages. Characteristics of the oral stage. The oral stage begins at birth and typically lasts until a child is about 1 year old. The oral stage is characterized by the pleasure center and libido being centered around a child's mouth. The oral stage is about satisfying the each need through the mouth of rooting, sucking, including breastfeeding, biting, and tasting different foods. So you can imagine when a child puts something in the mouth, how excited, how confident the child is at this moment. Now, fixation could occur at this stage if an infant's needs for security were not met due to unfulfilled feeding. Freud believes that oral stage fixation could show up later in adulthood as being overly aggressive, demanding, and dependent, indulging, and could express them through compulsive habits of smoking, overeating, and excessive drinking. Would you believe in this? Next, let's look at the anal stage. Anal stage is characterized as the pleasure center and the libido being centered around the child's anus and focus on successful toilet training. Anal stage takes place when children are about 1 to 3 years old and children take pleasure in defecating. And this is the period of independence training, out of which a child learns to separate them from his and her parents with a growing list of individual needs and desires, and the most important of all, learn to do proper toilet training. Now, the fixation could occur at this stage if a child's needs for security were not met due to poor toilet training. Freud believes that children who have experienced harsh toilet training could develop an anti-retentive personality characterized by being overly strict, neat, and greedy of money in adulthood. Freud also believes that the children who have received linear toilet training could develop an anal explosive personality characterized by being messy, disorganized, and rebellious in adulthood. Next, let's look at the phallic stage. The phallic stage is characterized by a change in sexual impulse from anus to the genitals. Freud believes that phallic stage begins when children are about 3 years old and continue until they're about 6. And Freud also believes that this is the time whereby controversial edible and electoral complexes develop. Specifically, the edible complex is developed when a male child desires for his mother's exclusive love and attention, whereas the electoral complex is developed when a female child desires for her father's exclusive love and attention. In the Oedipal conflict, the boy wishes to marry his mother, but only to find or realize that his father is all too powerful or strong to challenge, and gradually learn to identify with him instead. Whereas in the electoral complex, the girl wishes to marry his father, but learn to align with the mother as way of indirect possessing her father. The girls would also develop what is called a penis envy and feel inferior to boys, according to Freud. And fixation could occur at this stage if a child's needs for security were not met due to poor parent-child interaction. And Freud also believes that non-resolved phallic fixation could show up later in adulthood as being self-centered with either a low sense of self-worth or shyness, or a flirtatious or promiscuous character in social interactions. Next, latency stage. Latency stage is about a time when children are about 6 to about puberty. And Freud proposed that children of this time learn to adapt social values, develop social skills, and form relationships with people outside the immediate family. Freud also believes that children direct their sexual energy towards different outlets, such as hobbies, school activities, and school learning. It all happens during this stage. Freud also believes that children develop strongest relationships with others of the same sex, focus their energy on friendship. Freud believes that fixation is possible at this stage, resulting in immature, inconsiderate behaviors and a poor ability to develop close interpersonal relationship with others as an adult. Finally, let's look at characteristics of the genital stage. The genital stage starts at the onset of puberty and continues unto adulthood. Freud believes that the start of puberty comes with a reawakened, active libido and a sexual attraction and pleasure-seeking. Freud believes that proper expression of sexual instinct is achieved through heterosexual relationship and sexual intercourse. And if a conflict develops during this stage or an early stage, perversions may develop, thus preventing normal and satisfying sexual pleasure and a relationship. And Freud believes that fixation of genital stage could lead to a person to seek more pleasure in excessive kissing or oral sex than through the actual sexual intercourse. I know you must have feel confused of what I've said so far about Freud's psychosexual development theory. I find it hard to present it to you as well, because it has received a lot of criticisms. In other words, Freud's theory of psychosexual stage has received harsh and numerous criticisms during his time and after his death. Freud has been criticized by scientific researchers for providing no scientific proof or evidence of his theories, and some even discount his theories as being fully incorrect. And Freud has also been criticized as relying exclusively on anecdotal accounts from his own child and adult patients. Freud has also been criticized for his penis image theory, particularly by feminist scholars who would declare his theories to be totally unsubstantiated and non-sense-making. So what is my own critical reflection of Freud's theory? Well, I just have one critical comment of Freud's theory on psychosexual theory, or the libido theory in general. That is, if I have time to meet Freud, I would say to him directly, please change sexual desire for mom and dad to affectionate or love desire for mom and dad. All will be explained. Because if you think about it, a child, sexual desire for mom and dad, you cannot imagine. But if you can think a child's affection or love with mom and dad, will totally sense-making or plausible. Of course, if I present my opinion to Sigmund Freud, I'll be kicked out of his group immediately. And for this part, I'll talk in next lecture about how Alfred Adler and Carl Jung broke away from Freud because of his assertion of the psychosexual theory and the psychosexual development.